4, 3, 2.
Welcome to On a Bender, the podcast that breaks down the biggest bets, boldest picks, and hottest takes in sports. From the court, to the field, to the diamond. If there's a game, these guys got it covered. Now, meet the three amigos. Eric, Fish, Snyder, the handicapper to the stars, Ryan Bender, and the snack-loving legend, Brad Runny Grunberg, a.k.a. Mr. Snacks. And now, here's your host, Fish.
Welcome, gentlemen.
Doing?
Number 4.
So good to see
already.
both your handsome faces, our new logo. We're ready to roll today, the 4th episode of On a Bender. And good morning to both of you. It's almost afternoon in Toronto. I'm going to open up with a question, Ryan, because I've got some input for some of my customers.
All right.
So we're going to go to the end of the NFL season, Bradley. And I always wanted to ask a guy like Ryan this question. In week 18, there's a lot of what I call garbage games. You got teams that are just playing each other. You got teams sitting people. I'll take one example and make it short-winded. The Broncos are playing the Chiefs.
I knew that would be it. Yeah.
The Chiefs are okay. Well, this is great. The Chiefs are sitting everyone, Brad. Okay. Now the line, some places MGM 11 to 11.5. Broncos favorite. I think the total was the money line was minus 549 on the Broncos and plus 410 on the Chiefs, and over under 40.5. It's 38-0 Broncos. How does Ryan Bender give advice on how to bet something like that?
I can tell you, I was hoping this would be the example, and I knew it'd be the example because it was the one glaring one where basically you had an NFL team playing against like an XFL team, right? So I'll tell you the advice that I gave everyone, which is what we did. We hammered that. We were all over Denver every which way. It was a no-brainer pick. I mean, you don't get a lot of those in the NFL, but that was an absolute no-brainer play on Denver. And look, I mean, sometimes the line will speak to you, right? The line will tell you something's up here. So, I mean, anyone who was like in Kansas City in that game should have at least known something's going on. Even if you weren't listening to what was going on with the players sitting and all that, you should have known something was going on because the line can speak to you and it can tell you sometimes that, hey, take another look at this. But no, we were all over the Broncos in that one.
I got a question. Ryan, I know how you come up with, your picks and stuff. Who makes the lines in Vegas or offshore? How does that work? Is there one guy? Is there a number of guys who talk? How does that work?
Yeah, so I mean, there are a number of guys. It used to be Vegas. It's pretty much offshore now, and I mean, they kind of take their key from some of the sharper guys. But I'll tell you, it's not an exact science. And one of the things that the sharp books do, and I'll give an example of Pinnacle. Okay, early on, they will release lines to certain clients. Okay, so they'll give out the line, but here's the caveat. It's small limits. You can only bet $1,500, $1,000, right? But what they're really doing is they're testing their lines against the sharps. This is why Pinnacle doesn't want to ban sharps. They'll let us take little nibbles of this. And I mean, $1,500, who cares? But if we're going to get a soft line, sure, let's grab it. And that's going to help them shape the proper overnight line. So often they get it wrong, but they allow the sharp bettors to help them form that line. Now, there's kind of talk in our community, like, should we be doing this? Should we be taking these early bets? Because on one side of the coin, there's a bit of greed that we can find really, really ridiculously bad lines. But the other side, we're helping the books shape a more efficient line. And then when the big limits come out where you can bet, 15, 20,000, we're getting a slightly softer line. But in closing, I'll just say this. I don't know if I should say this or not, but okay. The discussion right now is basically, how can we screw with them? If they're going to shape their lines and let us bet $1,500 and move that off there, how can we manipulate those lines in our favor when the lines come out, So anyways.
Before Fish gets into it, I want to ask you this question. Why, when you go to Atlantis or the casinos in Toronto, they'll take your action, okay? But in Vegas, you walk into, the MGM or something, they see you and they go, no, you can't, 20,000, we're not going to take that. We'll take 1,500. Why is Atlantis and the casinos in Toronto taking whatever you want to bet?
So I'm still good. I'm still good at MGM. It's, Caesars, I'm pretty much screwed. All Caesars properties and, Treasure Island Cup. But I mean, even going into MGM, they don't have the limits. Like they just don't have the limits. And, you guys, like back in the day, you could ask for an exception and, you get it. Now it's like, good luck. It's like pulling teeth to try to get anything. But when Toronto was easy in the beginning. And then, once they started to have a clue what was going on, it became much more challenging. I think I talked about in the last video. It took me a few days to get limited by Woodbine Entertainment. And then they held my money. At one point, I had over $100,000 payout. They held it for like a month. And I had to, finally threaten to go to gaming, OLG and stuff. And I happen to know a member of parliament who happens to be the overseer and head of OLG. So I knew they weren't keeping my money. That was for sure. But Bahamas, I'm, when I would go to Vegas, I'm like, probably one of the bigger sports bettors out there. In Bahamas, no, I wouldn't say I'm small fish, but, you got guys parking six.
Please don't say fish. Thank you. A small.
A small potato. Basically, you got guys parking, $60, $70 million yachts, like, betting $5,000 on a game is not going to get them hard, right? They want to be out there firing. And so, I've seen it take $100,000 bets. So if I'm going up the window betting 25,000, 20,000, whatever, right? No problem. They don't bat an eyelash, print the ticket, off you go. So it's like, they're okay with it. Like, whereas Vegas, like, they're so afraid to get burned by the sharps that like they're, hurting themselves. In Bahamas, it's like, what do they care if a guy comes in and, he's betting 20, 25,000, they got other guys betting 100,000. And look, I'll leave it with this to give you an idea of the clientele in Bahamas. Okay. So everywhere I go, I always go to the high limit room. And sometimes, depending on the casino, you get the private room, right? Private room, they bring out the nice bottles of scotch and, cigars, all that kind of nice stuff that goes on in the back private rooms, not the high limit, like behind the high limit, the private rooms. Okay. So I made an inquiry in Bahamas at Atlantis. And for the high limit room, you need to have a $500,000 line of credit with them to walk in there. For their private room, is $5 million. So that is the kind of action and clientele they're bringing. But again, you got guys coming over from Miami, some of the richest people in the world, from Bimini, from all over with their yachts and the money. And like the money there is crazy. So anyways, that's
that's good.
Yeah, no problem to get money down there.
Fish, what are we starting off with today?
Oh, what we're starting off with today is, this is a great time of the year right now if you're not a football fan, because now what Bender's got to deal with right now is you got 20 games roughly left in the NBA and NHL seasons. March Madness, Bradley, I know you love basketball, starts in about 2 weeks. So again, I'm going to try and segue into, we talked about with the Broncos and the Chiefs. Look at trends. The Lakers and the Warriors in the last 10 games are 8-2. The Lakers have now gone to a number 2 seed. But you look to bet these games, like the Lakers play a lot of, I call them teams that are just out of the playoffs right now. How do you handicap all this stuff? Because there's going to be a lot of people betting NBA games and March Madness. How do you handicap that?
Well, when it comes to handicapping Laker games lately, I wouldn't be the guy to ask because I've been on the wrong side of a few of them, both totals and sides. But I actually really liked I like the Clippers a couple games ago against the Lakers on that, that bounce back. They already lost the one game before. I thought it was a fantastic spot. So like I was on the Clippers and, unfortunately took an L there, but I just look going down this stretch. I think it's really, really important, especially with the way the NBA is now, that they're not making announcements about resting players until 2 hours before the game. So you kind of have to in a way encompass that into your capping. Like you're not going to say, okay, LeBron's going to rest, but they're playing their third game in 2 nights. They had an overtime game. There's a good possibility you got to factor that in to when you're setting your own lines and trying to determine if there's value. So it's like, it takes a little bit of, guesstimation. But look, I mean, there's some places and some points with these games where you're not sure, lay off, find another game. Vegas has to create a line on every game, and we get to pick and choose the ones we want to bet. That's our edge, right? So a lot of these spots, I just say, no, forget it. I'll move on to another game.
One thing
Brad,
great
can I do a
about
follow
Ryan,
up on that? I'm sorry.
wait, let me just ask Ryan one question. One great thing about Ryan is, and this, Fish, that during the playoffs, the defense tightens up, and that means unders. Okay. Is that true, Ryan? I mean, I've been friends with you for many years. I've seen that happen a lot because the defense really has to perform in the playoffs.
Well, look, I mean, I don't have the exact numbers on me, but I mean, anytime as a sports bettor, I guess your first look is towards a dog and towards an under, because I've looked at comparisons of literally hundreds of thousands of games across sports. And if you blindly bet every over out there and you blindly bet every under, you're going to lose money either way, but you're going to lose a whole lot more money blindly betting the overs. And the same thing goes with the favorites. Now, when it comes to playoffs, I'll give you one little tidbit focusing on NHL. Okay. In NHL, not so much early in the series, but when you get later in the series, we're talking games 5, 6, and 7, those unders hit huge. Okay. And there's opportunities at books where you can move lines a little bit. So you can actually, buy a half goal here or there. And it's really worth it in the playoffs. But I mean, you're talking about some high percentage. I got systems in playoffs when you're looking at certain situations occurring in games 5, 6, and 7, late series stuff, where they're hitting over 70% on the over the last 20 something years. You don't see a lot of systems hitting 70+%. So, first look towards the under doesn't mean there's not going to be value on the overs and stuff like that. But that's where your first look has to be, especially in the playoffs when teams tighten up. They play differently. I mean, one that I'm looking to this year, because we already talked about it. Remember, Fish, we were saying about OKC, right? I've said it. I think that, when it comes time to knuckle down and play some defense, that's just what they're going to do. They're going to play some defense, and that might be an exploitable line early on in the playoffs, right? Where you're going to see maybe a slightly higher total than you think makes sense in playoff ball, and look to exploit the under. If they misprice the line, I'll be there.
Brad and I go out. Brad's only 38, but he has the mind of a 60-year-old. Back in the day, you'd look at a lot of the big thing was home field advantage, home ice advantage, home court in basketball. I look at a lot of trends, and it's not that way anymore. You're looking at a lot of teams in 7 games winning on the road. Do you factor that in? Do you look at the home court in basketball and the home ice advantage in series and say, well, Toronto, which has 79 points and leads their division, is going to get a home ice? Does that really matter to you?
Yeah, yes and no. It does not carry the weight that it used to. And I remember back in the day, I mean, home team underdogs in football was just, okay, it's a home team dog, bet them. That's, 20, well, maybe not 20, 17, 18 years ago. That's kind of how it was. I mean, there was such an edge, but I don't believe it carries the same weight. And, I think a lot of it has to do with player management, that these players are treated a lot better now on the road than they used to, right? I mean, they're flying private charters, they're flying first class, they're well fed. They're not having to go play in Nassau Coliseum where the visiting dressing room was next to colder than the ice. So these guys are taking care of their coddle. So I don't think that road, being on the road is all that much of a detriment. And sometimes, where you can find little bits of edge still, where it used to be, again, a bigger thing is, at the end of road trips, teams are a little bit fatigued. Maybe they played again, back to back or 3 games in 4 nights kind of thing. The other thing too is like, okay, they're getting ready to go back home. They're thinking about seeing their families. Like these are humans as well, right? So, I mean, how many points is that worth? I don't know exactly, but I mean, it's certainly something to look at. If you already like a game and you're factoring all these things in and say, okay, it's a tired team. They've been on the road a while. They're going home next day. That's worth a look.
Interesting. I'd like to go into 2 weeks, March Madness starts, and I'm a big Arizona fan because I went to University of Arizona, and we have a great coach, but we always seem to lose. Okay. Who do you like? Who do you like in the Final Four? Let's go around the horn. Fish, what do you see?
I do. I have, but you want me to go first?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm looking at the top 25 right now. Arizona's 24th, the 19-10 record. I said this on the last show. Other receiving votes are getting the top 25. UConn's at the top. So right now, if I had to pick, Auburn's number 1. I have them going to the Final Four. Don't laugh if Alabama, Clemson make a move. I have Wisconsin, Clemson, Auburn, and Duke going to the Final Four, and that's it. We'll get it on the master class.
All right.
Fish said bet this. What about you?
Yeah, I like Final Four. I like Auburn. I like Florida. I really like Florida. I don't see Arizona. I maybe UCLA, and I don't know about the fourth one. UCLA is like a quiet assassin. They've had a great season, and they got a great coach. And I love Arizona, but we just got that one player, Love. He's amazing, but it's like having LeBron. You got to have people around you, kind of like Seinfeld. Seinfeld had great actors around him. So, how about you, Ryan?
Okay, so first and foremost, Arizona. I don't know, last year or the year before, I was heavy on. I thought they were going to do great. Ended up getting knocked out pretty early. They're not on my list. I'm sorry to say that, Brad. But okay, I mean, not going on a stretch. I was starting to say, Auburn is a very, very well-rounded team. Florida, even though they're number 5th ranked, that is my number 1. Brad, we agree on that. I think I talked about that earlier. I love this Florida team. I think that this is a team. If there's any, I'm not saying number 5's an upset, but if there's someone that's coming out of there, because look where they play. Look who they play against too, right? I mean, they are playing a very, very strong schedule, right? So I love this Florida team. My concern, I like Duke, but my concern is, again, they seem to have to get things done on the offensive side. And I don't know that there's anyone better on the offensive side, but they could, at any point in that tournament, they could come up against a team who's just playing rock solid D and squeak out a win. So they're a team that scares me a little bit, although they have the firepower to do it. And also, I do want to say this. Do you guys know the answers? The March Madness brackets that they do every year?
Yeah.
How many correct brackets have been filled out in all of history?
Wow.
Guess.
How many? 0.
I would say 0.
That's the right number. 0.
Really?
0.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know that they said that if you were randomly picking it, the odds of you getting it are like, if you did one every year, it would take you like almost 100 billion years to get one. And then if you had a high level of skill, they had brought that number down to like 1.5 or 2 billion years it would take. So no one's hitting it, right? And that's why, look, these companies, it's smart promotion. These companies come out and say, hey, join our free March Madness. And if you get a perfect bracket, get $100,000. I mean, they're probably self-insuring that promotion, but if they're not, they could probably insure that promotion for, $500. Like, I'd insure that.
Yeah.
Hey, Ryan.
Go ahead, Fish. Yeah.
You talked about Ryan's taking his friends to Vegas. I don't know if that was a drunken stupor or not, but if you're thinking about taking any of your friends to the Bahamas,
are you in?
Yeah.
Brad's in too.
Well, you'll carry Ryan's luggage, and I'll play as security. Okay.
No, you'll play as caterer. That's what you'll play.
Now's the time of year.
One segue, Ryan, because other than Super Bowl weekend, the biggest weekend in Vegas for foot traffic in the sports books is the first and second round of the NCAA. You know, you're going to go from Brad. You're going to go from 64 teams to 16 in 3 days. That's got to be massive for you because what are you working 15 hours a day? Because there's so many games and so many different situations going on. You got to be one of these. You got to be one of these telephone operators in the 50s that worked at RCA. You know, it's got to be crazy.
Well, keep in mind. So, I mean, the time that I put in preseason is way worse than the time I'm putting in a March Madness because I've done a lot of the heavy lifting and I already have some baselines to work off of. College basketball and college football are tremendously difficult to build my power ratings out and to get, you know, a solid base. And when I create my power ratings, I am also creating a confidence score. Like, am I an A, a B, a C in my level of confidence on this number? Because I want to go back and revisit and adjust. So a lot of that is done in March Madness. That being said, on a little side note, March Madness, my wife, it's the only time she refuses to go to Vegas with me. She cannot stand the sound of the squeaking shoes. So she can't stand it. It drives her nuts. And so she came with me for March Madness, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago. She's like, never again, never again. Like, I will refuse to sit in a sports book and listen to that sound all day long. I can't do it.
Oh, God. You know what I love about March Madness? I always tape it and watch it. One shining moment. Is that one of the greatest parts of March Madness?
Yes.
I love it. It makes you feel good. And I'm asking you guys, is there any sleeper? Is there any one team? I mean, like, remember Jimmy V took NC State to the finals and they beat Villanova, right? Wasn't that it? It was crazy. Big Ed Pinkney. I mean, it was one of the greatest games, and Jimmy V did it. It was, God, I loved it. I love it. And then the one shining moment. It's like, you know, it's a rite of passage. You got to watch it, right?
Right. I have one. I mean, I agree with both you guys on Florida because they play both games, the perimeter and they can play inside. But Clemson shoots a crap load of 3-pointers, and they can get you one of those. Brian, you're too young, but remember Loyola Marymount with Hank Gathers and Bo Kimball?
God, yeah.
Playing 150 a game in '89, and they went to the Final Four because they had no interior game, Ryan. But these guys are just throwing threes. So check out Clemson. Maybe that could be my dark horse.
It sounds like Loyola Marymount back in the day had figured out what the current game is today. You know?
Yeah.
So I love a good underdog story, and I love trying to find value on an underdog. I'm going to tell you exactly going into this tournament how I see it. Unlike some other years where, you know, you look at some teams and I think the up top is so strong that there's going to be upsets in this tournament. Okay. But I don't think we have a Cinderella story this year. I don't think that there is a team that's going to come through, you know, double digit ranked and, you know, surprise the world. I don't see it this year. I just think that the difference in the level of talent and ability is too much. It's just too much with these top teams. They're too strong.
Who's the guy on Duke who's a monster? Who's that center? I just saw. Oh my goodness! They want him to stick around, but he's probably not going to stick around.
Would you? Mind you, some of these guys with the deals now, like,
yeah,
you know, they're making good money.
And then if they get hurt, it's over, right? I mean, if you get hurt, it's, you know. I want to segue to Major League Baseball, but I want to ask you guys a question. Pete Rose, he should get into the Hall of Fame now. Shouldn't he get in posthumously? I mean, this is ridiculous. The guy should have been in many, many years. You know, he passed away, but I'm saying it's time. This is bullshit. I mean, Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, some of these other guys, I understand that, Barry Bonds, but Pete Rose did it right, man. He played hard every second.
I feel like we talked about this before.
I just saw this whole thing on ESPN about it, and it really bothers me. He's got to get in. No bullshit.
Yeah. I swear I think we talked about this. But yeah, I agree with you. I think, you know, I think it's a no-brainer. He should be in.
Well, to jump on Brad, Major League Baseball just said 2 days ago that they're going to open up the priority of getting him into the Hall of Fame, which you guys talked about and we did, which is, you're right, it's horseshit. But so this is on a bender. That is Brad Grunny Grumberg, aka Snacks. I'm Eric the Fish Snyder. That's the masterclass right there. Ryan Bender. Ryan Bender, the masterclass of sports betting on TikTok or YouTube. Bender wins. I have a question for my brother Bobby. Brad knows him. And he said, and we know we talked about tennis on a previous show, but he said to me, quote, ask Ryan, other than the four major sports and college involved, football, baseball, basketball, and hockey, is there any other sport that Ryan Bender concentrates on to give that give his master class tips? Golf.
No, so no golf. I said I passed. I did a little bit of IndyCar, and only in very specific circumstances. Outside of that, not really. Now, I mean, I like to bet a lot of, small school stuff. I think the one thing when people come on and they join my master class, they start getting my plays. I've actually had people message me and email me and be like, well, who do you like in this game? Like, this is a prime time game. Like, I don't get Jacksonville State versus Grambling on TV. Like, that's your big play. I don't care about that. I want to know who's going to win this game. And so I have to literally explain. I say, look, that's not how this works, right? My whole line is, look, if you're sports betting and you want excitement, you need to jump out of an airplane, preferably with a parachute. But if you want to make money, then, you can't be betting these primetime games. Yeah, there's value sometimes in those games, but it's often in, these games that people don't want to see. So yeah. So that being said, I focus in areas where they might not be exciting. It might not be the sexiest thing. Canadian football, women's basketball, I've talked about. I hate the fact that women's basketball has become so popular. Not for the women. I'm happy for them. I hate it for myself as a sports bettor because now Vegas is waking up and they're getting a bit better with their lines. 5 years ago, the lines were so atrocious, so bad. And and guys in masterclass could tell you how bad we beat the hell out of women's basketball. We crushed it, hitting numbers that you could never even dream of in other sports, and it was I get example, Connecticut, right? And it's the line's -8. And I'm like, this line should be -16, right? They end up winning by 20 points. That's how off some of these lines were back in the day. But again, now people focusing on it. Now people are watching it. Vegas getting a little bit sharper, right? So I stick to the main stuff. I don't know golf. Everyone tells me, Bender, you got to do fighting. You got to do UFC. I don't even know where to begin to cap that. I don't. So I don't do it.
Major League Baseball, Ryan is so nice. He sends me his picks every day. And preseason baseball, man, he's got a couple of winners there, slam dunks. I was 8-4. I'm like, wow, and I've been saying this for years. What do you think? What do you think we're looking? I know we talked the Dodgers and all that. Is there any sleeper this year? What do you think, guys?
Me?
Yeah.
Want to go first, Ryan?
I was gonna say, I don't know what you call it, sleepers. Again, with the way that the current baseball salary cap is set up, it's becoming not salary cap. There is no salary cap. With the way that the payroll is set up, it's quickly becoming what Formula One is now, where you have a couple top teams that can win. And then barring a massive thunderstorm where 14 cars collide into each other in the first turn, the other guys don't have a chance. Can the low payroll guys go out and do the Moneyball thing again? No, they can't, because now everyone's using the analytics, right? Everyone understands the value of these things. They understand, wins above replacement, WAR plus. They understand all these things and utilize it when they're signing agents and pricing people. So I want to see a dark horse. You won't, though. You won't. You're going to see one of these teams with $150 million plus payroll and $50 million of luxury tax going. A couple of years ago, the Dodgers had a higher payroll in their minor leagues than the Oakland Athletics professional team.
Yeah.
How are you going to beat them? How are you going to beat them? You got $20 million, in your center field in the minors.
It's crazy. Yeah. I know.
Brad, he's 1,000% right in what he just said, because I don't think about the Tampa Bays, the Pittsburghs, the Kansas City, they can't compete. So when you say dark horse, Bradley, I think of the 10 teams that have spent the most money, and the one team I think that could get there, 2 teams, and it's not going on the limb, is the Boston Red Sox and the San Diego Padres, because they have a good farm system and they've spent money, but they haven't spent money like the Mets, the Dodgers, and the Yankees.
Right.
Brian, any futures?
Not yet.
Not
yet. No, and you know what? So for futures, most likely will be, again, like I do most years, will be on the team total side of things. And there's often a bit of arbitrage you can find there as well. If you shop around, like when it comes to like team win totals, and for those of you guys who don't understand, like arbitrage is basically sometimes you can find different lines at different books. So like if a win total for a team was, over under 80.5 wins on the year, right? Well, they win more or less than 80 games. Well, one book might say 80.5. The other one might be 82.5. And you could bet the over here, the under here. And the worst case scenario, you're going to pay juice on one of the sides. You're not going to pay juice on both. You're going to pay juice on one side. But if we're to land on 81 or 82 wins exactly, now you win both sides. So it can be very, very attractive, and that's a possibility as well. But most of my futures, I'm not saying I won't have a one team that I like, but most of my futures will be in the team total side of things, and possibly some player props as well, like we did previous years.
Is there any advantage to flying down to Florida or Arizona and watching the teams? I know some gamblers that do that. Do you gain anything from that, or not really? Just a fun trip?
What I gained was having a guy inside one of the organizations getting me the lineup, which I no longer have anymore. And
that's great.
I think I talked about it last week. I had a guy with the Kansas City organization was basically feeding me the lineup. He's moved on to bigger, better things, so he's no longer with that organization. That was a nice hedge, right? I mean, knowing what that lineup's going to be and being able to get bets in. So, we had spots last year where in the last few years, people always ask me, it's like, why are we always betting for or against Kansas City in preseason? Like, I'm like, I don't know. Like, maybe I just got a good feel for it. Right. But we won a lot of money on that. As for flying down there, I'm sure there's some value to it. Is it something I'm going to do? No. My time is better served, to be honest. My time is better served, as boring as it may sound, sitting in front of all my monitors, computers, analyzing numbers, analyzing statistics, trying to get a better power rating for these teams, a more accurate level of confidence on the power ratings, so that when the season starts, that, I can have that edge over Vegas. I think that's better served than, flying down there. You can only watch one game at a time, right? So it's like, I don't think it's a good edge for me.
Yeah, why don't you take us through a day in the life of Ryan Bender? I mean, when the games start, do you just sit in the cave there and just watch all the games, or you just play with your son and whatever happens at the end, you cash in, cash out, and you move on to the next day?
So for a number of years, I stopped watching sports altogether. And I think it was proof that you don't need to watch sports to win at sports betting, right? I mean, you need to understand, numbers and analytics and all this other stuff, but certainly don't need to watch it. And one of the things that I think is really important now when I do watch sports, because I enjoy sports, I like watching it. But one of the things that's really important is when it comes to things like the announcers are saying, or these stats that pop up, or all this other stuff, I block that out completely, right? Before the game, like you have these announcers saying, oh, well, it's like, they've won, 7 straight on the road now, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, block that all out. Like, I just like to kind of focus on my own stuff and get rid of all the noise. The second you stop listening to network noise, and these so-called experts that never seem to pick a game right, the second you get rid of that, then you already got a leg up. But my day is boring for most people. I love it, but my day's boring for most people. Like I literally sit in front of a computer for hours and hours and hours. Now, have dinner with my son, play with him for a bit. My wife puts him down. I get back into here, finish up. Now I'm kind of forced to take a break because the lines keep coming out later and later and later from Vegas. Like it's so insane that, I don't even want to go down this road because I'm going to end up on a rant, but I'll say like, I used to be able to get lines the day before. You do all your capping. Now I'm sitting there 11:30 at night. Okay. 11:30 at night, Eastern time. You got the first game tipping off at noon and Vegas still hasn't put out a line on that game. Wow. In what world? Like, do they not want people betting on this? It's like, so anyways, normally I hang out in the garage. I have computers here. I got a laptop that stays in the garage and I do a bit of work out there and, when the lines all finally come out, then I go back. But it's time consuming. It's tiring. For a lot of people, it drives them crazy. Like I can get into this like kind of hyper focus thing. Like my wife would tell you, she'd come down and talk to me and I won't even hear her. Like I don't even remember that she came down. And she knows now. She's like, whatever, just walks away, I guess.
We all do that.
Okay.
Yeah. What?
Yeah.
I walk away from my parents. But it's interesting. You can never judge a book by its cover. I don't know if you know this, Fish, but Ryan is into the martial arts. And I saw him with some nunchucks. He posted. I go, this is the Karate Kid. I mean, how did you learn to do that? Yeah, you were like,
it wasn't nunchucks. Do you remember what it was?
Oh, well, I thought, what are the things with the?
No, it was
what was it?
It was a cannon. It was actually a Colt 45 Peacemaker.
Oh,
and I was like spinning it and.
Oh, I didn't see that one. No, but I saw when.
Oh, really?
When you're doing this thing, and then you grab them and you go. I go, oh God, no. Hope Ryan likes me today. No, it's just interesting because, people think, especially in LA, everybody's, got the beer muscles, right? In the bar, they're watching the game. I used to work in a club. I remember all those clowns, they walk in like a nerd and all of a sudden they're Rocky Balboa, they're throwing haymakers. But no, Ryan is into a lot of things that people don't know, but they're all good.
I'll tell you, like from my hockey days, and I mean, I know you know this, Brad. So I played a high level of hockey, and unfortunately, I was not able to get into the NHL. But I do have a lot of fights under my belt. Over 1,000 minutes in penalties, most of them from fighting. And I will say that I hated every second of it. I hated fighting, and it was a means to an end. It was something that, I felt I had to do. And I'll be all like, there's other guys, it's not as big in the game now, but we're talking over 20 years ago, right? In the game, fighting was a big part of it. And, if you had some skill, and I mean, I could put, I put up 1.4, 1.5 points a game, in lower low. That doesn't equate to NHL. It probably makes me like an 8-point guy in the NHL. But if you could fight as well, it mattered, right? And I hated it. There's other guys that come up against that I knew that they didn't like it either, right? And you kind of just tussle a little bit, you throw a couple, and that's it. You're not trying to hurt the guy. But every once in a while, look, you come up against guys who want to hurt you, and you know it. Like, and there's some big boys, right? Like, there's some big guys. Like, I'm down weight from where I was when I was playing, but you come up against a guy, he's got 25 pounds on you, he's 245, stocky, good balance. Like, my whole thing that I used to do, it's a trick in fighting. I always try to get the jersey and I give it one good push back and get him off balance and pull towards as hard as you can and then just start throwing. Now, I was a lefty, so, that kind of caught people off guard as well. If you get them off balance, but I'll tell you, I fought this little guy, okay? Little guy, and I had everything on this guy, weight, reach, size, everything. I got his jersey clean too. So it's like, I'm going to win this thing, right? I get his jersey. I push back as hard as I can. He doesn't budge an inch. and I pulled forward as hard as I could. And I swear his jersey came like all the way towards me and stretched. This guy didn't move an inch. His most solid little bastard I ever saw in my life. And I just saw he just started landing shots on me. And the one break I got is after landing 5 or 6 shots, and I was just at this point trying to keep him back, because like I was done. So I go down and I could see out of the corner of my eye. I kind of turtle at that point because I could see him cock, but he at least had respect, because sometimes like when you're playing the minors and you're playing like, semi-pro or low-level pro hockey, guys will take cheap shots on you. They don't give a shit. But this guy had the respect that when I was down, he didn't send that last one. But the guy like absolutely rocked me. And like,
can we tell everybody the guy's name? His name is Vern Troyer. He was Mini-Me in Austin Powers. Now, it was a celebrity game. I don't know what you're fighting for. I mean, Vern's a great guy, and he's, of course, as you say, a great fighter. But where's the referees? I mean, you guys are.
Well, so we had it's always a linesman that break it up, and we had 2 linesmen and 1 ref, and you chirp these guys nonstop, especially because I mean the refs, you show them respect, but the linesmen back then, they're not calling penalties, so you chirp the shit out of them, right? But I learned quickly you want to be nice to them, because those are the guys that are going to jump in, risk their own health if something goes downhill in a fight, right? So you do want to be a little respectful and nice to those guys. But again, they're not getting paid enough to jump in when you got a 245-pound guy throwing haymakers, and and the other guy just wildly throwing too. And you have fights where they're kind of technical, but you also have fights where it's just you're just throwing and hope you connect. Like if you connect 1 out of 7, throw as many as you can, hope that one hits and hits on a good spot, then you're great. But these linesmen are fucking, pardon my language, these guys aren't jumping in. There's no way these guys are jumping in when you're throwing haymakers. They're like, whatever, it'll tire you out. And, they can see, like, if you clinch, right, and you talk to each other sometimes, right? It's like, you done? Like, give a little tap. The refs will come in. Oh, yeah. I'll tell you this. If you guys could mic these guys up who are fighting in the NHL, what a riot it would be. Like, what a riot. Like, you guys have no idea the stuff that's being said in there. Like, honestly, guys, you have guys that are fighting, right? You got guys like in the NHL, you got guys that are fighting like that, and they clinch together, right? And, the linesmen are breaking up, man. And the guy would be like, hey, I love you, guy, man. You're a good guy, right? And, they get a little tap and off you go. Meanwhile, they just knock the shit. It's not always like fighting is not always, hey, I hate this guy, or hey, like there's so many reasons that hockey fights occur. And it often occurs against people you don't want to fight, people you might like, people you might know, people who played on your team before and got moved. But that's a little thing. When you see those guys doing that little, hug, they're clinching, they're worn out, they're you don't know what they're saying to each other, but
Were you recruited in colleges? Did you play?
No. So I, the route I went through junior hockey and then was to play in Europe. And then, Whitley Bay Warriors or Newcastle Warriors are in England. So it's their top level in England. Now that year was the year of the NHL lockout. The gentleman who got my spot over there, because you're only allowed a certain amount of imports, right? You can only have X amount of imports because they're trying to develop their game as well. So they want to have locals, right? So for imports, you only had a certain amount of spots. I believe it was 3 or 4. It might have been 5 back then. But Wade Belak ended up, remember Wade Belak played for the Leafs? He ended up taking my spot. Yeah. So I had a guy I played with, and he's like, dude, you got to come out and play in Australia. It's the greatest thing ever. They love hockey. They especially love fighting out there. You got to come. And dude, our game schedule, like, we don't play that many games. We get to sit, on the beach, and the women love us. Like, you got to come out here. And I'm like, well, what about imports? He goes, go look at it. He sends me the roster, right? Every single player on that roster, American, Canadian, 1 Swede, 1 Russian, Canadian, and maybe 2 Aussies, right? Because it was all Canadians. Like they don't care, right? So I started going down this road, and then I found out. So I don't know what it's like now, but professional hockey, it exists. Professional hockey in Australia. This would have been 99, 2000, somewhere in that range. Okay. $16,000 a year.
Wow.
That's what you made.
Wow.
Say
That's crazy.
I'm not doing that.
That's Ryan. That's Brad Grunny Grunberg. I'm the fish man. That's Ryan Shorzy Bender. Yeah. Shorzy is one of the greatest shows in Canada. Are you a big Jared Keeso guy? Right.
I honestly, I don't watch too much outside of,
He's played Don Cherry in the movies. He did Letterkenny. He's got Shorzy's one of the #1 shows in Canada. So you really are stuck in the cave there. And it's about, he's a hockey player that's a goon. Mm-hmm. And he plays on a very small team in Manitoba or something like that. It's excellent. But we got to get Brad a job on that show because he'd be great, And the dialogue is tremendous. 2019, Brad, I'm in a Raider game, and I'm in the airport, my son, right?
Yeah.
And we're leaving Oakland, Ryan. Just going to circle back to you. And I see Brent Musburger, the legendary Brent Musburger, sitting there on the same flight. Max goes, go talk to him. I go up to him and I said, look, I'm not starstruck, but I want to thank you for letting me grow up with you. He goes, sit down. And I said, I love the way you started every NFL Today back in the 70s with, you're looking live at sold out Soldier Field, where today the Lions are taking on the Bears, and the weather is 41 degrees with the wind chill factor of 17, with wind gusts at 45 miles an hour. It's going to be tough to have the passing game today. He looks at me and goes, you know why he did that? Because every producer on our show was a major degenerate gambler. And that's how they got their news. We went to every stadium on our pregame show.
Yeah.
So that's technology back then. My question to you, Ryan Bender, do you go to your other competitions? You want your competition and see how the lines are, what they're doing to try and get an advantage?
So, I mean, the faster people realize that we're not competing against each other, cappers are not competing. Maybe we're competing in a way to get that line, but it's us against the books. Like this is war. We need to be allies. We need to be together versus the books, right? And so it goes back to the what I was talking about earlier with them allowing sharps to shape their lines, and giving us small limits where we bet $1,500 instead of $25,000. If we all bought into this together, we could spend $1,500 betting the wrong side on a bunch of lines, have them move that line, and then smash it the other way when that line comes out incorrectly. But here's the problem. It needs everybody. And the problem is there's people out there who would be greedy and who would be like, oh, well, as soon as you move it that way, I won't participate. I won't spend my $1,500 to move that. I'll let you do it. And then as soon as you do it, I'll take a little piece on the other side. And thank you very much for that extra 1.5 when the live line comes out. So we could be working together to destroy the sports books, but there's still people who are short-sighted. So I just want to do one mention as well to the future of sports betting. And I've talked about them in the past, Bet Openly. Okay. It's peer-to-peer sports betting. And the reason I love this so much, I know the owner, peer-to-peer sports betting has to be the future of sports betting if it's going to survive in any way other than the sports books just stealing money. The reason being is, Fish, you like the Ravens. Brad, you like the Chiefs. You're both going in and the line's 7. You lay -110. You lay -110. You just both paid juice, right? What if you eliminate that middleman? You take that bet, and what Bet Openly does, there's no juice at all. You take 7, you get 7, no juice. The winner pays 1%. Okay. The beauty of this is not only are you cutting out the sports books, you're not paying any juice anymore. Okay. But the book doesn't care how much you win. You're not going to get limited, right? So, there's always two sides to a game. There's always people on side A and there's always people on side B. if we could get those people together as a community and, get that money out there in these exchanges, then, sports betting becomes cheaper for the losers and more profitable for the winners. And, that's what we just have to have, that whole community. Because I would love to do that. I've been promoting this for years. I want to see this grow selfishly. Like, I love the owner. But above and beyond that, I want to see it grow selfishly, because I want to be able to go out there. I know that every game I bet on, there's thousands of people on the other side of that game betting hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars on the other side. If they could just come together with me at this exchange, then it's like, okay, I take this side, you take that side. No juice is paid. 1% commission if you win, which you're happy to pay, right? And
Sure.
and I don't get it. I could bet any amount nonstop, because the book doesn't care who wins or loses. So anyways, throw that in there.
What's
Beautiful.
your favorite hotel? Where do you think you're going to stay with the boys? And I know you walked the book, talking to people, shooting the shit. That's important to you, right? You want to
Yeah.
see what people are betting and what's going on.
I
And by the way,
think
talking about juice, you know the guy in Parliament, you know the guy who owns Open Bet, you know the guy who works at Chick-fil-A, okay, that was me. So. But no, is there one hotel that treats you the best?
I've always loved Caesars, but here we are with the sports betting aspect of it now, that limited in terms of what I could get down. So it's a shame being my favorite hotel. Probably gonna end up staying at Circa. Love Derek Stevens, love everything he's doing. I love the fact he's a sports bettor. I want to go and do some free publicity for the man, just because of like who he is. Like, no money, nothing. I just want to go and I want to film there and be like, look, this is where sports bettors need to be. Because I think he's like, the real deal. Like, obviously the man's there to make money, but he understands sports betting and sports betting mentality. Not like these corporations are so afraid to get burned, right? Like, look at Caesars, how much money they just lost in last quarter.
Yeah.
And, they're so terrified. They're so terrified of a sharp bettor coming in. They're so terrified of a card counter. They're so terrified of all this stuff that they're basically like pushing people away, I'll be straight honest with you. I know some pretty amazing sports bettors who are proper degenerate table players. So, you let them get that money down. They might burn you there, but half these guys aren't walking out the door with the money anyways. So, downtown is where I'm going to stay with the boys. I love Caesars. I do love Caesars. I just, I wish they treated me the way they treated me 10 years ago.
Sure. They should. Yeah. And Fish and I have talked about this. We love old Vegas, 70s, the 80s, early 90s, where, here's 5 buffets, Mr. Snacks. Enjoy yourself. You want some more? Here's 10 more. We don't care. You stay here, you gamble. We're happy to have you. Now, Mr. Fish, you have to play $5 hands at the blackjack table for another 3 hours, and we'll give you half a buffet. Right? I'm exaggerating.
You got like in the casinos, like at Bellagio and stuff. Like, I'm outside the sportsbook at Bellagio, and I had a drink or whatever, and I put $20 in the machine or whatever. Like, I bet, I don't know, a couple $100,000 in bets or sportsbook, and the bartender, he's like, "Can I get you anything else?" I'm like, "Yeah, get me a beer or something." And he's like, "Oh, your machine's flashing. You haven't played it long enough. You got to keep playing it, and then I'll come back and see." I'm like, "Yeah, you know what? Never mind." Took the money. I'm like, so I'll give you a comparison. I'm staying at the Golden Nugget downtown. I check in. I'm there, playing a little bit of table. So I'm just having a good time. I'm there with my wife, right? And I came down with a bug. Like, I got sick. And they had me set up in like their VIP. It was a 2-story room. The beautiful, like, I don't know, thousands of square foot downstairs, upstairs, beautiful, everything. Like, it's the nicest room I ever stayed in Vegas. And I was sick the whole trip, right? Like, just feeling awful, barely left the room. So go to leave for the airport. And we get to the airport, and I get a call from the host, right? And I'm thinking like, here we go, right? He's going to be like, hey, you didn't play at all. Like, what's going on? Like, we comped you all this stuff. Like, because I told him I wasn't feeling good earlier trip. He calls, he's like, hey, I just want to know, like, how you doing? I said, well, to be honest, I'm feeling a little better, but I'm still not great. He's like, I know you're heading out today. I just want to see if I can get you a limo. So I'm like, well, dude, I'm like, A, I'm already at the airport, and B, like, I didn't play at all when I was here. He goes, I don't care about that, Mr. Bender. It's like, we know you're a valued client and we don't care. You can come next time. He goes, you want to come next time? We'll set you up with the same thing. You get a limo there and back. He goes, don't play a single game. We'll take care of you.
Wow.
That is the way that Vegas was. That is the way the downtown places kind of still are. And that's what the Strip doesn't understand. And that's why the Strip's drop is way down, because they don't get that. The corporations have turned it into, something else. Like you go, sorry, I'm going to close with this and then back to you guys. But you go and you know what? You take a man's money a little bit here and there. You shear a sheep, so to speak. Vegas doesn't want to shear sheep anymore. They want to skin people. Okay. So when they walk in with the $50 for parking and $70 resort fee, and now your buffet used to be the $9.99 buffet. No, go to Bacchanal, $100 get you into, there. And so basically they want to grab you by the ankle, shake you upside down until every last thing is gone. And, the thing that the proper guys at Benny Binion, like, a lot of people got a lot of bad things to say about Benny, but he was a good businessman. He understood Vegas. If you take care of people, if you give them free buffets, free cigarettes, free whatever, okay? In Benny's case, free women, whatever the case may be. Yeah. You would have liked Benny, Brad. Whatever the case may be, you'll get it on the back end. That was his thing. You'll get that money back. That was the way of Vegas. And I actually watched, he hit the nail on the head. Daniel Negreanu, fellow Canadian, did a talk about this the other day. And I could not have agreed with him more about how Vegas has become and, why the Strip's hurting. But they need to get away from these corporate management structures and get back to what the core of Vegas is. They need to hire like an old timer who's been around the town, who knows people. Because if you go on the Strip, like nobody knows you anymore. Like nobody knows you. You could be, a whale and people don't even know who you are anymore. So but downtown's awesome.
Man, an hour goes by so fast, huh, guys? Unbelievable. Number 4, Fish. What do you think?
I couldn't agree with them more. I live here. I've been here over 30 years. And of course, I'm privy to the local places like Shucks Tavern.
Yes.
But if you're gonna go downtown, if you've been there, I gotta do a plug. My buddy works there, Spider. Barry's Steakhouse at the Circus, phenomenal. And
yes,
Derek Stevens is a great guy. I've met him once or twice before. He wouldn't remember me because I'm not like you, Brad, that eat him out of house and home. But
what's that guy's name again?
Derek Stevens. It's so old school. He used to own the 51. He used to own a minor league baseball team. It's still here, and he sold it. But his sports book is, Brad, when you come to town, I'll take you down there. It is unreal. And I'll go down and see Brian when he comes down and hang out. But yeah, I'm big into downtown, the El Cortez, all that stuff, California Hotel. I remember you remember what was it called? The Union Plaza, Ryan?
Oh yeah.
Union Plaza.
Oh,
right next to the Golden Nugget. Yeah.
Yes.
So good stuff.
Yeah.
No.
You're old, Fish.
So it used to be a place where people didn't venture to a little bit off, but you mentioned the El Cortez is an awesome place. The only thing is, so El Cortez, I don't know if you've been there recently, they allow like filming and streaming, and it's good promotion for them, but like, it's insane. I had a guy send me a walkthrough. He's doing a walkthrough. Goes, look at this. It's literally just a whole bunch of people playing slot machines with cameras set up and on tables, cameras, and there's like lighting and there's people like roped off. It's like, I never thought I'd see that in Vegas, but good on them, right? And sure. I had a lot of people say like the El Cortez is becoming like a great spot to gamble, favorable player odds. That's the one thing. Look, you're never going to find it downtown. And like I say about the Strip trying to bury everyone, you're not going to find 000 roulette anywhere downtown.
Yeah. Well, that's number 4. Wow, was that fun? Number 4 is in the books. We're on a bender. That's Eric Fish Schneider. I'm Brad Grundy Grunberg, aka Snacks, and that's the guru, the man in the middle, Ryan Bender. We'll see you next time on a Bender.